Easter had come. Young and old rejoiced that winter had passed, and the warm summer had returned. Only Radulj Pishta rejoiced little. On the holy day he took his anvil and hammer and went out from his hut at the edge of the little village into the open country. At the edge of the forest he lit a small fire. He began forging horseshoes and horseshoe nails, one horseshoe after another, one nail after another, while the people in the village prayed in the church with the priest and sang holy hymns. Then a man with 5 heads came out of the forest. He approached Radulj Pishta, the blacksmith. "Good day. You are working even on Holy Easter Day?" "Yes," answered the blacksmith. "I must. Otherwise the people at home in my hut will starve." The man with the 5 heads replied, "But it is not fitting to work on Easter Day. You can work harder on another day and earn more, so that your family does not starve." Then Radulj Pishta said, "You can speak easily enough. You have 5 heads and can think more easily than I, who have only 1. At home I have 15 children. 7 are blind, 7 are deaf, and the youngest, who knows what will become of it? They need much, my good man, and I must work hard in order to feed them." "I did not know that," replied the man with the 5 heads. "You are right. Then continue your work, even though today the people in the village celebrate Holy Easter. May God bless your labor." And with that, he went away. At the same time, Radulj Pishta's wife sat in their little hut at the edge of the village, binding large and small brooms from fresh birch branches, which she intended to sell at the next market in town. Then the man with the 5 heads entered the hut. "Good day, good wife. You are working on Holy Easter Day?" "Yes," she answered. "My husband is outside forging horseshoes and nails, and I bind brooms so that we may earn money and feed our 15 children, of whom 7 are blind and 7 are deaf." Then the man with the 5 heads said, "Yes, then indeed you must work. But I shall relieve your misery. I shall make your blind children see, and your deaf children hear. Yet you must give me your youngest child, so that I may slaughter it." The poor woman handed her youngest child to the man with the 5 heads. He drew a sharp knife from his belt. He slaughtered the little child and threw it out of the window into the road. Then he vanished and was never seen again. When Radulj Pishta's wife began loudly to lament and weep, her deaf children cried out, "Mother, we can hear our little sister crying outside in the road." The 7 blind children ran outside and saw their little sister lying there, alive and unharmed. They lifted her up and carried her back to their mother. She had all her children together again. None were deaf. There once lived a poor young man who loved a beautiful girl, and she loved him too. But her parents refused the marriage and promised her to a rich man. Then the girl fell ill and died. The parents and all the people in the village believed the young man had caused her death. They drove him away, wherever they saw him. One evening he went quietly to the churchyard. He lay down on her grave and wished for death. But death did not come, only sleep. He dreamed that she called him down into the grave and showed him treasures hidden beneath the earth. When he woke, it was night. He opened the grave. By the moonlight, he saw her. She lay there, as if alive, like a meadow flower in the morning. A strong desire took hold of him. He lay beside her and slept with her. Afterward, he closed the grave again and returned to live alone. 9 months passed. Near the end of the 9th month, he woke in the night. There was a sound, as if someone was sweeping against his window. A voice called, "Come with me. Come with me." He went outside. She stood before him. "Now I shall have rest," she said, "for I was your wife. Here is the fruit of our love. I go now, and you will never see me alive again. Marry my sister. My parents will not refuse, because through this, your dead man's bone, which I have just borne, you will become rich. It will show you the treasures beneath the earth." She placed a bone in his hand and vanished. In time, he became a rich man. The bone showed him where treasure lay buried. He carried it always. When he stepped upon hidden treasure, the bone struck him, and he knew. The parents gave him their second daughter. He lived with her for many years. Then one day, his wife saw the bone. While he slept, she took it and made a drink from it, the kind old women use for their dark arts. She drank, and he drank without knowing. They changed into 2 clouds, a dark cloud and a pale one. The dark cloud was the wife. The pale cloud was the man. They wandered for many years, until at last the spell broke, and they were allowed to die. Far from here, many hundreds of years ago, there lived a great king whom even his own people greatly feared. He was hot-tempered and cruel. Often when he grew bored and desired amusement, he would have several people sawn in half before his very eyes. He took the greatest delight in watching the poor wretches writhe in pain and finally die in terrible agony. One day the king sat before the door of his house, wondering how he might pass the time, when an old woman came walking along the road. She asked him for alms. He said, "You come at just the right moment. So you are in need of bread. Very well. I shall have flour ground for you at once." He summoned his wicked servants and ordered them to seize the old woman and saw her apart. The old woman submitted to everything without resistance. When the servants had finished their dreadful work, her severed body rose up and transformed itself into a wondrously beautiful woman, who ascended into the air and cried out to the king, "Woe unto you! You shall yet die a miserable death." Then the beautiful woman vanished. She had been a good spirit, an urme, who wished to put the wicked king to the test, to see whether he would truly have even an old woman sawn apart, or whether he still possessed a little respect for old age. Before long, the wicked king's life was to come to an end. A terribly hot summer came upon the land. The grain in the fields, the trees in the gardens, the grass in the meadows, everything withered away. When winter came, the people had nothing to eat. They went to their king and demanded food and drink, but he threatened to have anyone sawn apart who dared to ask him for bread again. While the poor people starved, the wicked king lived merrily, for he had many hundreds of wagons of grain and wine brought to him from another king, and had more than enough to eat and drink. Then once more an old woman came to the king and said, "Give me a little piece of bread. 7 times already the sun has gone down without my having eaten anything." The king replied, "Good. Then I shall have flour ground for you at once." He summoned his servants and had the old woman sawn apart. Then the severed body of the old woman transformed once more into the good spirit, who rose into the air and spat countless times upon the earth. From every drop of her spittle there came thousands upon thousands of mice, which rushed upon the king. He climbed onto the roof of his house, but the mice followed him there also, and gnawed at his body until they had devoured even his last little hair. Then they vanished. A fruitful summer came upon the land. The people received a harvest 100 times richer than ever before. They chose for themselves a new and good king, and lived contentedly from that day on. There was once a poor man who had many children. He could scarcely feed them. His trade went badly, and even when he wished to work, he found no work. Then a grievous illness came into the land, and all his children died. Soon after, his wife bore another child. The poor man went out to find a godfather, but in the whole village no one agreed. So he went to the churchyard and sat beside the graves of his children. As he sat there, death came to him. "You are looking for a godfather," he said. "Since no one will take the place, I will help you. Call the priest. Say nothing of me. When the people gather, I will come." The man returned home and prepared the baptism. When the priest arrived and the people had gathered, a well-dressed gentleman entered the room and stood as godfather. After the baptism, when the others had gone, Death spoke. "As a gift, I will tell you this. Your son will become a physician. When he is called to the sick, he alone will see where I stand. If I stand at the feet, the person will live. If I stand at the head, he must die. Through this he will become rich and respected." Then Death left. The father and mother soon died. The boy grew up and became a physician. When he was called, he knew at once whether a person would live or die. He became well known. All the sick called for him, and in a short time he became a very rich man. After many years he too fell ill, and he saw Death standing at his head. He said, "I thank you. You have helped me and made me rich. But tell me this. How do you know when a person must die?" Death said, "I will show you." He led him into an underground place. He opened a door. Inside was a vast room. Countless lamps burned there. "These," said Death, "are human lives. When the oil is gone, I come and take them. Look, this is your wife's lamp. It is still full. But yours will soon go out." The physician said, "I wish to see my father's lamp." Death replied, "It has long been set aside, but I will fetch it." When Death left, he poured oil into his lamp, and into hers. When Death returned, he saw it at once. He said nothing. He cast the physician out. The man returned home. He lived for many years. A poor herdsman worked for a rich lord, and spent his days and nights on the open heath with many hundreds of horses. Once he drove the horses to a place he had never been before. He found rich grass there and clear water. He went to his lord and said, "I have found excellent pasture and will stay there with the horses as long as there is feed for them." The lord replied, "You will not stay long. I have never had a herdsman in my service who lasted more than a day and a night in that place." The herdsman said, And why should I not last longer than a day and a night? You will see, said the Lord, and walked away. The poor herdsman went back to his horses and thought of nothing else all day but his Lord's words. Evening came. He lay down and fell asleep. Near midnight he woke suddenly. The dogs were howling and ran toward him. The horses pressed together in the middle of the field, trembling in every limb. Then came the sound. A terrible rattling, a crashing, and a horse came at full gallop across the field, its rider holding his own head in his left hand. The horse stopped before the herdsman, and the head spoke. What do you seek on my pasture? The same as you, said the herdsman. You have your head in the right place, said the head. I like you. That may be, said the herdsman, but yours was taken from you. Yes, said the head. I remain separated from my body until I find a man who will free me from the curse that lies upon me. The herdsman asked, Who cursed you? Tell me your story. The head began to weep. After a while it spoke. I was a rich man and lived long in joy and comfort. Once a priest came to my house and asked for money to build a church. I gave him much, and he went away. Later I came to the village where the church was being built. I do not know how or why, but I pushed through the people and said, Go to the fields and work. Build no churches. If God wants churches, let him build them himself. The priest cursed me. And so my body must wander without its head until I find a man who prays for my release, until a dry stick pressed into the ground puts out green leaves. The Headless Rider held out a dry stick to the herdsman. The herdsman said, With God all things are possible. I will pray for you. He drove the stick into the earth and knelt down. Toward morning the stick put out green leaves. The herdsman looked up. The rider's head sat on his shoulders. The stranger said, You have freed me. Now I can live again as a man. Come with me to my house. From this day you are my son and heir, and I will become a priest to serve the God I once insulted. And so it was. The poor herdsman became a very rich lord, and the man who had ridden headless through the dark spent the rest of his days in a village church, quietly serving. There were once 13 young gypsies who decided to leave their group and travel far into the world, to see foreign cities and unfamiliar people. For several years they wandered from town to town, from village to village, and they did not suffer, because everywhere they found work. One day they came into a vast desert. No one lived there. There was no water, no trees, no grass. For 3 days they wandered through that desolate land. On the 4th day they found a cave with an iron door. They knocked and asked to be let in. A limping devil came out and said, What do you want? Are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Very well. I will let you in. They entered, and ate and drank as much as they wished. But when they tried to leave, the devil stood at the door. He let them pass one by one. But the last man, he stopped him. The last one belongs to me. The others returned to the desert. They wandered again, until hunger nearly killed them. And once more they came back to the devil's dwelling. Again they were fed. Again they tried to leave. And again, the last one was taken. This happened again and again, until on the 11th time, only 2 brothers entered, and only 1 came out. Now only 1 remained, the last of the 13. He wandered alone in the desert, and at last he returned to the devil. He ate, he drank, then he turned to leave. But the devil said, "You will stay. 1 must remain, and you came alone." The young man said, "Open the door. I have already brought someone with me." The devil laughed. "Let me see. You will not escape me." The young man stood on the threshold. He pointed behind him and said, "You may keep that one." The devil slammed the door in anger. The young man walked away. Then he looked back. His shadow was gone. From that moment on, he had none. Once there lived a poor gypsy man and a gypsy woman who had no children. The man cared very little about this. Whenever he saw his wife sitting sorrowfully before the tent, he said, "Do not be sad. We are poor people, and should only be glad that we have no children." But the woman did not think so. One midnight she went out into the field and gathered herbs and bones, which she boiled at home and gave to her husband to eat. After this the woman became pregnant. But 1 year passed after another without her giving birth. 6 years passed in sorrow and misery. Then the poor woman finally gave birth, and they covered her with her husband's coat. But instead of a child, she gave birth to a little goat, who could speak like a human being, and grew up lively and strong. All the people of the band were very fond of him, so long as he was still small. But as he grew older, he began to play all manner of tricks, and tormented the women especially, giving them no peace. He carried on his wild pranks so badly that the entire band departed, and forbade the gypsy to follow them with wife and child. The poor gypsy grew very angry. He seized a heavy club and wished to give his goat-son a sound beating. But the goat-son was no fool. He leapt up onto a rock and bleated merrily, while his father could not climb after him. The gypsy cursed and raged below, while his goat-son danced wildly upon the rock, leaping about in delight. Then, a sick princess happened to be passing along the road. She saw the furious gypsy and the merry goat upon the rock, who at that moment turned a somersault, while his father struggled to climb up after him. The princess watched all this and burst into hearty laughter. Her father, the king, and all the lords and ladies accompanying her, were greatly overjoyed, for the sick princess had not laughed for many years. The king wished to buy the goat, and asked the gypsy what he desired for the animal. The gypsy replied, "If His Majesty wishes to have my goat, he must take me and my wife into his house as well, for without us the goat will remain nowhere." The king gladly agreed. The gypsy, his wife, and the goat were brought into the king's beautiful house. They lived in a fine chamber, enjoyed delicious food and wine, and walked about in splendid clothes. Father and mother felt very comfortable, and their goat no less so, for all day long he entertained the princess with his wild tricks. One day the goat sat with the princess in the garden. She was healthy and cheerful now. He said to her, "Listen, what would you say if the 2 of us became husband and wife?" "Why, you foolish creature," answered the princess, laughing. "You are a goat, and I am a girl." "That does not matter," said the goat. "I can become a handsome man, if only you wish it." The princess laughed and said, "Very well. Become a handsome man, and then you may become my husband." "Good," answered the goat. "If you wish to help me, cut off my tail and devour it. Then you will be able to pull the hide from my body. Once you have the hide in your hands, burn it at once, and do not give it back to me, no matter how much I beg you." The princess was fond of the goat, but a handsome man would please her still more. She took a knife, cut off the tail, and devoured it. Then she pulled the hide from the goat and ran with it to the smithy, where, despite his pleas, she threw it into the forge and had it burned. When the last hair had burned away, the goat had vanished, and before her stood a handsome man. A band of gypsies from the tribe of the Layla once camped on a wide, uninhabited plain. After the people had eaten and drunk, they lay down in their tents. Before long, one could hear them snoring in deep sleep. Only Kuru did not sleep. He was the poorest young man of the whole band, the poorest of the whole tribe. He was in love with Panna, the beautiful daughter of the chieftain, and she had great fondness for him. But when Kuru asked for the girl as his wife, the old chieftain said, "You are the poorest man of our entire tribe, and you wish to marry my daughter. Go and earn your living, lest I have your back painted black and blue." This grieved the poor young man greatly. That night, too, he could not sleep. He sat outside in the open air beside the horses of the band. Then at midnight, he saw a white flame flare up nearby and vanish again. 3 times this repeated itself. Kuru fetched a hoe from the tents and began to dig at the spot where he had seen the white flame. After a while, he struck a small iron door. He opened it with great effort and entered a dark room. He groped about in the darkness and found a second door. Through it he entered a second room where a candle burned, and a small man lay there, chained hand and foot. When the small man noticed him, he said, "Free me from these chains and I will make you rich." Kuru replied, "Tell me first who you are, and why and by whom you were chained." The small man said, "I live far from here with my brothers high up in the mountains. Once we went hunting and killed the wife of the king of the weasels. When the king of the weasels learned of this, he lay in wait for me, took me prisoner, and imprisoned me in this house. If that is how matters stand," said Kuru, "then I will gladly help you." He freed the small man and watched laughing as the little fellow danced around the room for joy. After a while, the small man said, "Now I must hurry home to my brothers, for the king of the weasels will soon come to check whether I am still here. Take this ring. Place it on the middle finger of your left hand. Whenever you want gold, turn it once from left to right, and each time you will find a ducat in your hand." He gave Kuru the ring. And then they left the dwelling of the king of the weasels. The small man went up into the mountains to his brothers. Kuru went to his tent. He turned the ring on the middle finger of his left hand from left to right so many times that by morning he had a great pile of ducats to give to the chieftain for his beautiful daughter Panna, who now became his wife. And they lived together for many years in feasting and celebration. And now this tale is done. There once lived a poor man at the edge of a forest with his 3 daughters in a small hut. One day, early in the morning, they went into the forest to cut rods. Toward evening, the father said to his eldest daughter, "Go and fetch my rope. I laid it upon a stone in the forest." The eldest daughter went. When she reached the place, the serpent lay upon the rope. "Move aside," said the girl. Let me take the rope." But the serpent did not stir. It said, "Kiss me first. Then you may take the rope." "Kiss you?" cried the girl. "No, I shall never do that." And she ran back and told her father what had happened. Then the second daughter went to fetch the rope. But she too had no courage to kiss it. She returned without the rope and said to her father, "I will not kiss the serpent, and I dare not kill it either. That would bring misfortune upon me." Then the youngest said, "I shall fetch the rope." When she came to the serpent and it asked for a kiss, she was frightened. But she stepped forward and kissed it. The serpent said, "You have moved me. Now you must come with me to my dwelling. There you shall know neither want nor hardship." The girl said, "I must first bring the rope to my father. Then I shall return and go with you." She carried the rope home and told her father everything. Her sisters did not want to let her go. But she gathered her few things and returned to the serpent. The serpent led her far up into the mountains, to a small house where it lived. When they entered, the serpent said, "This is our dwelling. We shall always have food and drink. I live beneath the hearth. If you need me, call for me." And it crawled beneath the hearth. The girl sewed. She ate and drank. She sang. And sometimes she looked out through the window into the beautiful green forest. When she lay down to sleep, the serpent came out from beneath the hearth and said, "Lift me into your bed." The girl was frightened. But what could she do? She lifted the serpent into the bed beside her. Thus 1/2 a year passed. Then one day, as she looked out through the window, she saw the first human being she had seen since coming to live with the serpent. A handsome young lord. He approached her and began to speak with her. The next day he came again. After a week he asked, "Will you become my wife?" She said, "Come again tomorrow. Then I shall give you my answer." That evening, when she lifted the serpent into her bed, she said, "A handsome young lord wishes to marry me. What shall I do? Shall I go with him?" The serpent said, "Yes. Tomorrow you may go with him. And if things go badly for you there, come back to me." And so it happened. The young lord came the next morning and led her away into a beautiful garden, where they lived in a great house. For 1/2 a year they lived there happily together. Then the young wife gave birth. 9 little serpents. When her husband heard, he said, "You are a witch. Devour your serpent children at once. Then leave this house, or I shall have you burned alive." In her terror, the poor young woman devoured the serpent children and fled. For a long time she wandered, until at last she came to the place where her father's hut had stood. There was no trace of her father, no trace of her sisters, nothing. Then she went back to the serpent. When she came into the forest where she had once lived with it, she saw to her great astonishment a beautiful castle. Before its gates stood her father. Her sisters stood beside him. They welcomed her. Inside the castle stood her husband. He embraced her and kissed her. And then he said, "Many years ago I insulted the Queen of Serpents. She transformed me into a serpent. You have freed me by kissing me, by coming to live with me, by lifting me into your bed, and at last by devouring my 9 serpent children. Had you not done this, I would have had to wait much longer." And then the true life began. Drinking and feasting in abundance. I too was there. And it was there that I heard this tale. Once a poor gypsy came into a great forest and lay down beneath a tree to sleep. Then suddenly, in a dream, a woman dressed in white appeared to him and said, "I see that you are a poor gypsy, and I wish to make you rich. Go deeper into the forest, where beside a river you will meet a naked woman. That woman will tell you where and how you may become rich." When the gypsy awoke, he went deeper into the forest, where at the bank of a river he encountered a naked woman. "It is good that you have come," she said. "I have been waiting for you for a long time. Follow this river to its source. There stands a tree, and beneath that tree a treasure lies buried, which shall belong to you. But while you dig beneath the tree, you must keep your eyes closed, and not open them until you hear a cry." Thereupon the woman vanished. The gypsy followed the river to its source, where a great tree stood. He closed his eyes and began to dig beneath the tree. Then it seemed to him as though cold serpents were crawling up his body and sucking at his lips. Yet he did not open his eyes, but continued digging. Then he felt pain in all his limbs, and it seemed to him as though boiling water were being poured over him. He continued digging. After a while he grew so cold that all his limbs trembled and his teeth chattered. He felt a violent burning and stinging in his eyes, yet he did not open them, but continued digging. Then close beside him he heard a wondrously beautiful song. Soft arms embraced his neck, and warm lips kissed his mouth. He heard a voice say, "You have fulfilled your task, and now the treasure belongs to you. Come now and rest in my arms." He almost opened his eyes, but just in time he remembered the words of the naked woman, and he continued digging. Then the ground beneath his feet began to rise and sink. He could scarcely remain upright, and staggered about like a drunken man. After a while, someone struck him a mighty blow upon the head, so that he fell to the ground. A cry was heard. When the gypsy opened his eyes, he saw beside countless baskets filled with gold a beautiful maiden, smiling at him as she said, "You have completed your task and saved me. Many years ago I lived here in this place, where once a beautiful house stood, together with my brother, happy and content. Then my brother fell in love with a woman who was already the wife of another man. My brother killed the man and brought the woman, who possessed these many treasures, into our house. But they did not live happily together for long, for the great wealth made my brother hard-hearted and proud. His wife killed him, and then herself, and at the same time she cursed the gold. But me she transformed into the great tree beneath which you have just been digging." The gypsy looked around him and saw that the tree had vanished. He fetched wagons from the town, loaded up the treasures, and returned home with the maiden. He married her, and lived there until his end. There was once a poor servant who worked for a very harsh master. Little food, all the more beatings. One day the servant resolved to leave and go out into the world. He packed his few things and came to a river. A great fish lay upon the sand. He wished to kill it and prepare himself a meal. But the fish spoke. "Do not kill me. Throw me back into the water. First, take a scale from my body. If ever you are in need, burn it, and I shall come to your aid." The servant tore off a scale, put it in his sack, and threw the fish back into the water. He continued on his way. He came to a tree where young eagles sat crying in their nest, for a fox was trying to climb up. He drove the fox away. One of the young eagles said, "Pluck a feather from my wing. If ever you are in need, burn it, and I shall come to your aid." He plucked a feather, put it in his sack, and went on. Toward evening he met a man who was half human, half ant. It was the king of the ants, stung by a bee. "Dear friend, pull the sting from my cheek and I shall reward you." The servant pulled it out. The king of the ants said, "Pull a hair from my head. If ever you are in need, burn it, and I shall come to your aid." He pulled out a hair, put it in his sack, and wandered on. At last he came to a land where there lived a wondrously beautiful princess. She would take as her husband only the man who could hide himself from her so well that she could not find him. Many men had tried. She found them all, and had them unmanned and sawn apart. For the princess possessed a mirror in which she could see everything that existed in this world. When the servant heard this, he sought the princess in marriage. She consented. He went to the river, burned the scale, and when the great fish came forth, he said, "Hide me so that no one may see me." The fish opened its jaws. The servant sprang inside, and the fish descended with him deep beneath the water. The princess looked vexedly into her mirror. She could not find him anywhere. But when she was about to cast the mirror aside, she saw him at the bottom of the water, and the tassel of his cap protruding from the fish's mouth. When the servant came before her, she said, "You are inside the mouth of a fish. I shall not have you killed, for no one has ever hidden from me so well as you. But if I find you a second time, I shall have you sawn apart." The servant said, "I shall hide a second time. If you find me, have me sawn apart." He went into the forest, burned the eagle feather, and when the eagle came, he said, "Hide me so that no one may see me." The eagle took him upon its back and flew with him high up into the heavens. The princess looked again into her mirror. After a long search, she saw far above in the sky a great eagle, and the tassel of his cap protruding above the eagle's back. When the servant came before her, she said, "You are upon the back of an eagle. I shall not have you killed, for no one has hidden from me so well as you. But if I find you a third time, I shall spare your life, but I shall have you unmanned. Before I die, I wish to fill that tower with the remains of those I have condemned." And she showed him the tower that stood in the middle of the courtyard, already almost entirely covered. The servant did not allow himself to be frightened. He went away for the third time. He came to the field, burned the hair of the king of the ants, and when the ant king appeared, he said, "Hide me so that the princess cannot see me." The king of the ants summoned all his ants. They dug a tunnel swiftly, leading beneath the seat upon which the princess sat. The servant climbed inside and seated himself beneath her. She looked into the mirror. She could not find him anywhere. She cast the mirror aside and cried, "Where are you?" The servant pricked her with a needle and cried, "Here." And so they held their wedding and lived together.